So what I've done already, I've stepped ahead of this a little bit. I'm using a variety of apples, 3 small red Maccoons, 2 other red apples, and 2 green Granny Smiths. I've gone ahead and peeled them, and you could speed up this process a little bit if you had an automatic core, which I know I have because my sister bought me one. I'm doing this video for my niece Patricia out in Ohio. She asked me if I could recreate the apple dish we served last year when she was visiting, and she wants to do it for Thanksgiving. So basically it's a very simple recipe. 5 or 6 apples, a little bit of lemon juice. I like the lemon juice because you can put it on the apple, give some acidity to the dish, and also protect the apples from turning brown. Now, as I said, you could speed up this process a little bit if you just had a core, and somewhere around this house is a core. But I think it's just as easy to do this. Get rid of your core. Slice your apples as if you're going to make an apple pie. So you're going to want fairly thin, not too thin pieces. And some people prefer to use a paring knife. I prefer to use a chef's knife, but basically you're going to want to slice the apples about that thickness, right? You're going to want to get rid of any core devices. That's what your apple is going to look like, your slices. You're going to go ahead and put them in your dish. Now, I did say earlier, but there was no cord, there was no memory card in the camera, so it didn't record. When my niece asked me to do this recipe, I said I don't really have a recipe. I had to wing this from scratch, develop this recipe from scratch, and I did it in Atlanta for a party. And I named it after the lady who loved it. Her name was Claudine. So this is my rendition of Apple's Claudine. I think it's a wonderful dish to serve with pork. We use it all the time with pork tenderloins. And I'm especially fond of this wild boar. We have a freezer full of wild boar right now. So this is really coming to good use. So you can see about the thickness of the apples. They're going to do just like you might do if you're doing an apple pie. So keep cutting, keep it done. Once you get all your apples cut and cored, I'm going to step ahead a little bit. Take your lemon juice, your fresh squeezed lemon juice. Apply a little lemon juice for some acidity and some protection, right? Keep cutting. Once we're all done with this step, I will take you over to the stove. But before I do that, let me stop cutting these right now for a minute. Finish slicing these up, and I'll show you what ingredients are in this. In terms of spices, you're going to have the same kind of spices you'd have if you were making a pie. You're going to have cinnamon, a little bit of allspice ground, just a tiny bit of nutmeg toward the end, and you're going to use lots of brown sugar. Brown sugar is a secret to this dish. Optional butter, optional pepper, not butter, optional pepper. Butter is required to cook these, season these, and saute these. If you're going to use pepper, I'd lean toward white pepper instead of black pepper. If you want to jack this recipe up a lot, don't be afraid to add some sliced mushrooms and some Vidalia onions sliced and caramelized. Our daughter doesn't like either onions or mushrooms, so we're leaving this out of this dish. I'll be back to you just as soon as I finish slicing all these apples. I'm still cutting the apples, but if you're doing these apples using a knife instead of a corer, the corer will knock out the core and slice all the apples in one press. That'll make real easy work of this. Just try to go on the outside of the core, all sides, like I'm doing here. And if you've done this correctly, you'll have a core. Which means all you have to do then is slice the apples. I love to cut things, so chopping vegetables, chopping onions, chopping carrots for bolognese sauce. not a problem. And we're almost done here. So I'm going to go back to what I suggested earlier, and that is hit these with some lemon juice, some fresh squeezed lemon juice. Probably a half a lemon is sufficient. Now I've got 4 wedges here. You'll mix these up, you'll toss these a little bit. Get back to cutting. Once again, zip, 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 cord. Back to slicing only 1 more apple. When we come back, we're going to start sauteing these in butter, adding some brown sugar, and the rest shall be a lot of fun. Remember, surprise touch at the very end, you don't want to miss. Alright, I'm back to you right now. All the apples have been sliced. As I said earlier, don't forget this particular step. Apply some fresh lemon juice, once again for acidity, for some individual flavor. And to protect these, should you decide not to saute these until later on, you'll seal the top off with some cellophane, put it in the refrigerator for up to 2 or 3 hours. Turn your stove on. I always use medium. You know, if you watch Emeril Lagasse, he's always telling you your best friend on the stove is not the high-powered, unless you're trying to do some fancy Chinese cuisine. You want to have medium high. I've gone ahead and cut up 5 tablespoons of butter. We're going to let that melt. Oh, let's do another one. I usually cut them in 4s. You don't have to. Alright, so we got a little pan view right now going on. So once, as I said earlier, if you want to jack this up a lot, slice some very thin Vidalia onions in here and some mushrooms, and just it enhances it considerably for a hearty meal. Alright, once the butter has melted, or nearly melted, I'm only going to put half of the apples in right now. And there's no magic quantity in terms of how much brown sugar you should put in here. You can tell, probably, I'm thinking a half a cup would be good. Notice I didn't measure, this might be 3/4 of a cup. So we add the brown sugar, a good amount of cinnamon, tiny bit of allspice, 1/4 teaspoon if you're measuring. If you're not, about that much. I would hold off on a nutmeg until the very end. We're just going to use a tiny bit. What you want to do is thoroughly saute. Once the butter has melted, or nearly melted, I'm only going to put half of the apples in right now. There's no magic quantity in terms of how much brown sugar you should put in here. You can tell, probably, I'm thinking a half a cup would be good. Notice I didn't measure, this might be 3/4 of a cup. So we add the brown sugar, a good amount of cinnamon, tiny bit of allspice, 1/4 teaspoon if you're measuring. If you're not, about that much. I would hold off on a nutmeg until the very end. We're just going to use a tiny bit. So what you want to do is thoroughly saute your apples. You'll know they're done when you taste them. You don't want them mushy. You want a little crunch to them, but you don't want them raw either. You could have just eaten an apple with some brown sugar on it. Alright, I think everybody can see this. Mix your ingredients together. I like the camera view. We've never done the camera pan view before. All right, now that they're thoroughly coated, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the apples. Now you probably could have made this dish with one less apple. I think I did 7 apples. You could probably do this dish with 5 or 6. Depends how loud the crew is. If you're going to have the entire Carlucci clan, you better go to 12 apples. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put some more brown sugar on top. Just one little heaping 1/4 cup. That's enough. I'm going to do your apples. You'll know they're done when you taste them. You don't want them mushy. You want a little crunch to them, but you don't want them raw either. You could do a little bit more cinnamon. And again, a tiny spice, quarter to a half teaspoon probably of the allspice, the ground allspice. We're going to wait till we're all done. I'm going to just see if I got a little pepper. Remember I said I prefer white pepper, but we'll do a little bit of black. So I hope my sister Priscilla likes this dish. Her daughter Patricia was the one that requested the recipe. That's why we're doing this video. But I really want to get out to Ohio soon and want to learn how to make my sister's classic, world-class, famous Italian wedding soup. A bit of black, finely ground. All right, so just keep stirring as she continues to cook. She's looking really, really good. Toward the very end, when I get close, I would be very careful with the amount of this I use. 1/4 tablespoon, because it's powerful. All right, and I'm going to gingerly sprinkle this all over the top. So basically you're having an apple pie here without any dough. I asked you if you would stay tuned. We're not quite ready yet, but I'll go ahead and show you this, okay? I recommend when you do this next step, I seriously recommend you do not have the fan on. So if you're ready, here's how I finish this dish with a magic touch. I'm using a little Cointreau, but I actually prefer cognac or Courvoisier, which is a French cognac. I don't have any, so we're using Cointreau. Whenever you're using alcohol base to finish something off, this is when you'll go back up to high and do not have your fan on. Well, it didn't come up, it didn't flambe as much as I wanted it to flambe. Probably because we still have a little too much liquid in here. But it is on fire. I did this one day with the fan on. It was not a pretty sight. Flames went all the way up. So I encourage you not to do that. So that's about it. Get a fork out. Be sure you get a fork out, and you'll know some of the smaller pieces are already done. So you want to have consistency when you're slicing. And you don't have to cook these all the way through now. This one is done. Exquisite. This one's a little crunchy. I probably would continue sauteing these. Once the apples are done, if you want to thicken the sauce up, remove the apples from the dish and just reduce the stock by half. Right now the apples are shedding a lot of juice, which is going to be wonderful when you pour it on top of your pork chops or your tenderloin. And if you can use this for wild boar, no reason why you can't use this for wild turkey. Alright, that's it. Boomer Ranger Ron signing off here. Happy Thanksgiving to the Carluccis, my niece, Patricia, her husband, Mark, and my sister Priscilla. And everybody else who might be attending. Pamela, Jimmy. Did I miss anybody? Hopefully I didn't. That's all, folks. Bye.